Welcome back. Now, according to a new Afrobarometer survey, 2/3 of South Africans believe that postponing the municipal elections in October is justified due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The survey also found that although most citizens found it difficult to comply with COVID-19 regulations, some say it was necessary for a lockdown to be implemented to limit the spread of the virus. For more on this, I'm joined now by Sibusiso Nkomo, Head of Communications at Afrobarometer South Africa. Mr. Nkomo, thank you for your time here tonight. Now, 67% of South Africans agreeing with the decision that government had taken with regards to the lockdown. A lot of people would have thought that people were not happy with what's been happening in the past year.
Good evening, Maseko. I think it's quite important to preface that with the fact that people understand that there's a crisis that's happening, and obviously there are limits to how long people would accept the lockdown. And I think we saw that with some of the riots that happened. But for South Africans, I think it was important, I think it was understood very well that when the government communicated that the pandemic had arrived, that we have to lock down and save lives, that was, people agreed with that. In terms of how people then see the postponement of elections, I think that was a question we had put in without knowing that this was actually going to happen. But this was more about looking at what democratic rights people would be willing to have limited.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we look at the fact that there were some people, I think about 22% or so, who disagreed with the lockdown, were there any reasons that they gave, probably financial reasons?
Not necessarily. We'd have to break that down a little bit more, but generally around these questions of postponing the election, but also the use of security forces to enforce health measures and censoring media, there was large agreement, and this was because we surveyed in May and June. So I think that might have to do with what was happening at the time.
All right. So when we look at, I was surprised actually, to tell you the truth, Mr. Nkomo, when I saw that the survey showed that a lot of people agreed with media censorship. Did they explain why? Did you get to the bottom of why they would agree with media censorship? I mean, that would go against quite a lot in the Constitution.
Yeah, I think I think these questions actually really come down to telling us, what do South Africans, is there a democratic culture in South Africa? And the fact that you've got 56% of saying you should be able to censor media during an emergency is definitely something to worry about. I'd also say maybe the impact of COVID-19 has been so huge that people probably felt they'd rather hear from one voice. So, for example, if you think about how the president has been telling us what's happening every few weeks, and basically what we call rallying to the flag. So there's a crisis, we have a leader who's telling us what is happening, and we must support that leader. But I don't necessarily think rallying to the leader also means cutting back democratic rights, although this is what people would say. But also the censoring of the media is much lower than the postponement on elections.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the postponement on elections, I'm just wondering if maybe South Africans are just not ready to vote again because maybe a lot of people don't know who they're going to cast the vote for, or is it really just, trying to keep safe because that would be, for instance, a super spreader event? I'm just wondering exactly where do we draw the line? Maybe some people just thought, look, I can vote next year because I don't know who I can vote for right now.
Yeah, I would say maybe one of the biggest drivers is there's probably very few families in South Africa that have not been affected by COVID-19. I think we all know somebody who's either been sick. Our survey shows that about a fifth of people said that they knew somebody in their own family who had COVID-19. People have also lost jobs. I think also people have experienced deaths in their families, and it's quite a scary situation that people are finding themselves in. I think if South Africans want, when the election comes up, I'm sure they'd want to go and vote, but safety is a big issue.
Mm-hmm. All right, that was head of communications at Afrobarometer Southern Africa's Busiso Nkomo. Thank you, sir.